space, reality. It's more than a linear path. It's a prism of endless possibility, where a single choice can branch out into infinite realities, creating alternate worlds from the ones you know. I am the Watcher. I am your guide to these facts.
Wait a minute. This doesn't sound right. Hold on. Let me fix this. Now, imagine the blazing hot sun on your neck, wondering when a cloud will appear and not knowing how long you've been in the sun, longing for any type of sign of when the heat will end. The heat is the only agony and pain that you feel. But that's until you know the sun will ease. The sundial is a helpful friend this way. Hey, my name is Lee Reyes, and welcome to Dead Media, the podcast where anything dead lives on in my show. Today we're diving into the world of time, not just any time, but ancient ones, specifically ancient civilizations and the way that they told time. Today's topic, as you might have already heard, is the lovely sundial. Alright, now assuming that you know absolutely nothing about sundials, I am now going to act as your guru through this whole knowledge of plethora that I have to bring to you. Sundials. Okay, let's start with the big question here. What even is a sundial? Well, a sundial is the earliest type of a timekeeping device there ever was. Instead of having a little watch on your wrist that tells the time, people didn't have that. They had to improvise. What do they have that actually allowed them to see the passage of time? The changing of the sky, obviously. They used the sun, hence a sundial. A sundial indicated the time of day by the position of the shadow of some objects exposed to the sun's rays. In simpler terms, it's a watch that existed in ancient times, just not one that fit on your wrist. Okay, so now knowing what it is, next thing to know is how does it work naturally. So remember when you were watching cartoons, say you were watching the Backyardigans, and they're pirates, and suddenly they are lost in the jungle. The only thing that they have is some water and the sun that keeps making them sweat gallons of buckets. They're lost. They don't know how much time they have until it's going to be night. Until Pablo actually knows how to tell time. He then uses a stick, plants it in the ground, and allows the sun to cast a shadow. Now, knowing where you are is very important when telling the time. It can be describing when it's actually 6 in the morning or it's 6 at night. So, while these cartoons do simplify the way that a sundial works, or they don't even describe it as a sundial, they do have the main function and main way that it does do its job. So, these cartoons do a great job of actually helping kids understand how the sun works. So, in that props, I'll give some props to them. But minus some because they didn't actually say it was a sundial. Continuing, so who gets the title for creating the sundial? Who gets the gold? Who gets to be on top of the pyramid? Eh? That was a hint, if you could not tell by the sound of my voice. The winner that gets the credit with the invention of sundials is ancient Egypt. The Egyptian shadow clock. It sounds like a cool superhero nickname, doesn't it? I can see it now, an Egyptian person in a black coat And when they're getting closer in the middle of the night, you discover with every step you take that their face is glimmering, not in the way that, oh, they're so beautiful, but because their face is a clock. Now that would give me nightmares, especially when it's such a gloomy night like today. Okay, forgive my tangent. Moving on, the earliest portable sundial was created around 1500 BC. It didn't gain popularity until 1500 BC. Now that's a lot of people wearing clocks. Clocks. Anyway, the Egyptians used either a T-shaped or L-shaped object that had a bar where the shadow would appear. Imagine a building that's standing up straight, and in front of it there is this L shape, right? So it's an L that's on its back. When the sun hits the building, it casts a shadow onto this object. The shadow then helps people understand what time of day it is. So it also helped them with knowing how much sunlight they would be having. There would be markings on this object that would familiarize them with their perception of time. When the sun was getting too lower, they would then turn the shape around to count down the hours that they have. This gave them an idea of what to do and how to prepare for the night. Brief break now for our sponsor. Are you being chased by zombies? Are you tired of running away from zombies? I bet you are. But I know what you're most tired of in this zombie apocalypse. You're tired of not being able to tell how far you ran. What's the point of running if you can't tell how many steps you took? You gotta make sure that you're hitting your steps when your best friend who's a zombie is chasing after you, wanting to eat your brains. Well, I have the solution for you. The Apple Watch is just for you. It isn't just a watch. It's a phone. It checks your heartbeat, and it's a tracking device. Perfect for your tracking your steps and making sure you're hitting that 10,000 steps a day mark. And even better, letting your best friend, who is a zombie, who was just chasing you, know just where you are. Well, it was good while it lasted. Your friendship, that is. What will last longer is the Apple Watch. Buy the Apple Watch in your local stores near you. To our show, continuing our delightful conversation about sundials. Another question you may have is, how did other civilizations create their own? And how are they different from the others? So, one of the main ancient civilizations that I've researched on are the Mayans, the Babylonians, and the Chinese. All of these civilizations had sundials. Now, they may be slightly different from each other, but they all use similar mathematics and astronomy to help them figure out the way that they can use the sun to tell time. Starting with the Mayans, this was a group of indigenous people who lived what is now known as southern eastern Mexico. Most of what we know about them is focused on their precious artifacts that we hold today, plus the monuments that they've built that have lasted, like Chichen Itza. On their accomplishments on the sundial, when comparing the calendar years, their 260-day calendar and our 365-day, the Mayans almost exactly had it equal to the actual solar year in the tropics, within only a 19-minute margin of error. On the sundial now, a Mayan astronomer priest looked to the heavens for guidance. They used observatories shadow casting devices, and observations of the horizon to trace the complex motions of the sun, the stars, and the planets in order to observe, calculate, and record this information in their chronicles, or codices. From the observations, the Maya developed calendars to keep track of the celestial moments and the passage of time. They also kept detailed records of the moon. Although these do not seem to constitute a formal lunar calendar, they then used their knowledge of the sun and stars to build their monuments that still stand today. Now, the Babylonians had a very similar calculations and understanding of the stars as the Mayans. Their reputation that they had was to be described as filled with knowledge, as one of the main things that they were known for was for their discoveries in mathematics. Babylonians observed the periodic movement of the sun and constructed their own sundial, which was the first version. Using the sundial, the Babylonians divided the day into 24 hours. This distinction is what really sets them apart from other ancient civilizations. One of the first things that you might think of when you hear of ancient China might be the arts or music. While they exceeded the expectations of these categories, they were also geniuses in astronomical findings. The oldest and simplest astronomical instrument was the genome, Gibao. This instrument allowed people to observe the length and position of the sun's shadow so as to determine the time. The bao was an upstanding post, while the gi is a ruler or a dial lying on the south-north direction. The two are mutually perpendicular. The genome can be used to determine the direction and time in solar term. Now, timekeeping was essential in agricultural society of ancient China. The use of sundials for timekeeping was associated with the use of genome, which had its origin in remote antiquity. The difference of watering the crops at 5 a.m. instead of 9 p.m. could definitely change the crops, and not in a positive way. Regardless of these ancient civilizations' use and created of their sundials, the main theme that they all have is that time is essential in developing their sense of perception as the sensations change to keep the tracks of the crops that they grew. Fun fact round! I used some sound effects because I thought that might be starting up us. Good. Did you know that traditionally most sundials are engraved with a motto in the form of an epigram? Sometimes these messages appear as a somber reflection on the passing of time, or to remind us this life is short, but many times the dial marker simply wants to express his sense of humor or wit. Latin phrase like carpe diem, which it means seize the day, is an example of an often used sundial motto. Okay, now that we know a little bit more of the origins of a sundial, why don't we use sundials today? The simple answer is advancement of technology. As times throughout, more people were interested in how to make this sundial more applicable and more accessible for everyone. So they started testing out with new inventions. Some of these use weights to record the direction the sunlight would hit it. This may have worked, but it did not stay. This was an experiment done in the 18th century, by the way, by Henry de Vic, around 1360s. A similar concept that emerged from weights and time was the pendulum, which is a little swinging weight that uses a measure of time. It swings back and forth to show the passage. In modern age, physics has really the invention and sophistication of the modern watch. This is why we typically don't use sundials now. Instead, you have a device on your wrist that knows the time. Well, it looks like that's my time. I couldn't resist a clock pun, I'm sorry. Anyways, hope you learned something new today about something old. This has been Lee Reyes, Undead Media, over and out.